There's a moment somewhere around year 1.5 of running your own consulting practice when you do the math and you realize you've made more money in the last 12 months than you have made in any 3 years of being someone's employee. And the first thing you feel isn't pride, it is anger, because you suddenly understand exactly how much value you were generating for someone else and how little of it made its way back to you. If you've ever sat in on a Monday morning planning meeting and watched a VP take credit for the work you did the night before at 11 p.m. on a Sunday, well, this show is for you. I'm Kess Edafiogho. This is Career Leverage. And today, episode 1, we're going to talk about why senior employees leave the org chats and the case I'll make to you if you were thinking about doing it for yourself. Welcome to Career Leverage. This is a podcast for senior corporate professionals who are quietly starting to think about going independent and running your own consulting practice. If you're a director, a senior manager, a project manager, a business analyst, an enterprise architect, a transformational lead, or somewhere between the ages of 35 to 55, with a mortgage, possibly kids, definitely a pension you've been contributing to, and you've started to wonder whether the next move is up the ladder or off it entirely, well, this show is built for you. I'm your host, Kess Edafiogho. I'm a PMP and CBAP certified project manager and business analyst consultant. I run a consulting practice called Synergy One Consulting, and I currently hold active contracts in the Canadian financial services and federal government programs. I also run a separate venture in consumer lending and a personal brand called Career Leverage. So I'm not telling you to leave your job from the comfort of a course creation studio. I'm telling you what it actually looks like to be doing the work in this market right now. Each episode of this show is going to give you one specific piece of the puzzle. Things like pricing, procurement, incorporation, security clearance, contract sourcing, cash flow, most importantly, burnouts. The episodes are short, they're tactical, and they're Canadian specific where it matters the most. Because most of the consulting content online is reading for the American freelancing market. This is not your market. So today in episode 1, I want to do something honest. I want to make the case for leaving your permanent role. And then I also want to make the case against it. Because if you only hear the upside of independent consulting, you're not getting a strategy. You're getting marketing. And I don't think you came here for marketing. So let me start with what people get wrong when they talk about why senior professionals go independent. The popular version of this story is that you go independent for freedom. The freedom to work from anywhere, the freedom to set your own hours, the freedom to choose your projects. That is half of the story, and it's the half that gets you in trouble. Because freedom is a consequence, not a strategy. The real case for going independent, in my experience, comes down to 3 things. The first is income compression. As a senior professional inside corporate structure, your compensation has a ceiling that is set by your job grade, not by your outputs. You can be the highest performing senior business analyst in the division, and the salary band for business analysts is the salary band for that. Your only way through that ceiling is to get promoted into roles you may not actually want. Because the only thing the system can reward is upward movement. However, when you go independent, that ceiling disappears. Your income is now the function of your day rate multiplied by your billable days, plus whatever else you can sell on top, such as package services, retainers, advisory work. There is no salary band. There's only what the market will pay for what you can do. The second reason is optionality. You have options. When you're an employee, your career is a single bet placed on a single employer. You wake up one morning, the bank is doing layoffs, your business unit gets eliminated, and you have one income stream and 0 leverage. However, when you're an independent consultant with 3 clients, the loss of any one client is a problem, not a crisis. The third reason is the one nobody talks about, which is that the work itself is often better. I'm going to be honest with you. As a contractor on a transformation initiative, I'm typically brought in because these clients need the work done, not because they need a body to fill out an org chats. The conversations I have with my clients are about outcomes. I don't sit in 2-hour status meetings. to make a director feel informed. I don't write self-assessments. I don't manage someone else's career development plans. I do the work. I deliver the work and I move on. Now, those are 3 solid reasons I would put on a slide if I were trying to convince you to go independent. The first, income compression. The second, portfolio optionality. Plain and simple, you get better work. But remember, I told you at the top of this episode, I was going to make the case against my own arguments. So let's do that next. Here's the part of the conversation that does not show up in the LinkedIn carousels. When you leave a permanent role, you lose 4 things that you may not have priced correctly. You lose your benefits package, you lose your pension contributions, you lose your paid time off, and you lose your identity as a member of a known institution. Let's talk about the benefits and compensation first, because these math are the easiest. If you're at a Canadian big bank, or a corporation, or a government service, your employer is probably matching anywhere from 4 to 8% of your salary into pension every year. That is not a perk. That is deferred compensation. However, when you leave, it stops. You can move your accumulated pension out, you can roll it into a locked retirement account, but the ongoing match is gone. You now have to fund your retirement entirely from your own earnings. The next is your benefits. Things like health, dental, disability, life insurance, all those are also gone. You will be paying for them out of your pocket, either through a private health service plan that runs through your corporation or directly. Expect to spend somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000 a year, depending on your family situation and coverage level. The paid time off is the one that often catches people. As an employee, when you take vacation, you get paid. As an independent consultant, when you take vacations, you don't. So 2 weeks off is not a vacation. It's a $3,500 to $10,000 invoice you did not send. So I'll get into the math all of this in episode 2. But understand, when you go independent, you are not losing salary. You are losing about 30% of total compensation that was hitting inside the benefits, inside the pension, and inside your paid leave. And there's the 4th thing, identity. This is the one nobody warns you about, and it's the one that breaks more people than the financial side. When you work at a recognizable institution, say a bank, a Big 4 consultancy, a federal department, you carry the brand of that institution with you. You introduce yourself at a dinner party and you say the name of the company and people understand. However, when you go independent, you lose that. You introduce yourself as a consultant and the person across from you is now trying to figure out whether you mean Deloitte's consultant or unemployed consultant. It sounds shallow, but it isn't. Your LinkedIn network, your industry events, your professional groups, they were all attached to your employer's big name. When that gravity disappears, you have to rebuild your professional identity around yourself, not around the logo. That takes time and it takes deliberate work. And it is a much harder transition than people actually prepare for. So I want to be very direct here because I think a lot of the consulting podcast genres tries to convince every listener that you should be a consultant. I do not think that. I think there's specific people for whom this works very well for, and specific people whom it does not. You should not go independent if you do not have a track record of senior delivery. Independent consulting is a market for expertise. If you're 5 years into your career and you have never owned a deliverable from end to end, the market is not waiting for you. Get the reps in, lead a transformation, own a system, build a resume that would make the rate sustainable. You should not go independent if you cannot tolerate income variability. Some months you will bill $30,000, some months you will bill $0. If that financial pattern is going to keep you up at night to the point where it affects your work and your health, you have to build a much larger buffer than you think you need, or you have to stay employed. Neither is wrong. Self-knowledge is the strategy. You should not go independent if you are running from your current employer rather than running towards something. The independent consulting market does not reward refugees. It rewards specialists. with a clear point of view on what they do and who they do it for. So if you're leaving because your manager is difficult, the right move is probably a different employer, not a different employment model. And finally, and this is the one I would say more gently, you should not go independent if your spouse or partner is not aligned. The first 18 months of an independent practice are turbulent with a lot of ups and downs. If the person you live with does not understand why you're doing this and is not willing to ride the variability with you, the relationship will pay a cost that no income upside makes worthwhile. So have the conversation before you give your notice, not after. Here's what I want to leave this episode with. Going independent is not a calling. It's a personality type. It's not a sign that you are more entrepreneurial than your colleagues. It is a deliberate trade. You are trading a guaranteed compensation package and an institutional identity for a portfolio of much higher income streams and a self-built identity. For some people, that trade is one of the best decisions they will ever make. For others, the trade is wrong. Or it's the right one, but the timing is wrong. The work of this show is to help you make that decision with your eyes open, not to sell you the dream, not to push you out the door, to give you the actual data, the actual numbers, and the actual procurement vehicles with the actual rate ranges and tax structures, so that whatever you decide on real information. If this episode resonated with you, I'd ask you to do two things. First, follow the show wherever you're listening from, because the next 2 episodes will go directly into the financial math and the legal structure of going independent. You don't want to make a leap without both of these. Second, if you have a friend or a colleague who's having the conversations in their head about whether to leave their permanent role, kindly send this episode to them. The single biggest favor you can do for someone else weighing this decision is to give them an honest version of the trade-off, not a sales speech. And if you do want to go deeper, you can find me on LinkedIn under Kess Edafiogho. The handle will be posted on the show notes. I post regularly about the consulting market in Canada, and I'll be glad to continue the conversations there. This has been Career Leverage. I'm Kess Edafiogho. Next episode, we get into the numbers, what you actually keep after tax, downtime, and lost benefits, and the rates you need to get to come out ahead. Until then, take care of yourself, and remember, the org chart is not the only career blueprint available to you. See you in the next one.